You're listening to Love Talk Live with the relationship expert, Jaime Bronstein, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hi, and welcome to the show. We have a great show for you today. I have the lovely Kat Trimarco with me today.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show. So, Kat is a sex coach, a spiritual psychology coach, and a published author and speaker. She is the author of an amazing book called Self-Approved, a guide to accepting, loving, and expressing the person you truly are. Ooh, how could it be better than that? And she's been featured on lots and lots of great things like Soul Sexy Radio, Good Morning La La Land, Identify LA, Voyage LA, and Best Self Magazine. And even more exciting than all those is that she's been a keynote speaker at the International Wanderlust Yoga Festivals. So, Kat, I am honored that you are here today.
It's a pleasure.
And I'm so excited for you to, let's just start off with you maybe just sharing what you do, your story, how you got here, how you work.
Yeah, there's two pieces really to my story, and one was my own transformational journey that sent me into writing and publishing my first book, Self-Approved, and that was almost 6 years ago exactly, hitting an incredible rock bottom after 10 years of drug and alcohol abuse, and really just like a lifetime of unworthiness and a lifetime of misperceptions about who I was and what this life was about, and a lot of internal pain, a lot of internal emotional sadness that manifested as drug and alcohol abuse. And almost exactly 6 years ago was when I hit that rock bottom and made a sudden transformation and completely walked away from drugs and alcohol and embarked on a new life. And that's the journey that I share in my book, is that transformational journey and the processes that I went through, because it was a very intense and deliberate internal journey. So in the book, I share and teach those processes and use like my own examples of how I used them, but then also like how anyone can use them and create transformation in their life and break out of old identities and break out of old patterns and recreate anew. So it's really what I love about the processes that I teach in the book is that they're timeless, in that it doesn't matter. You don't have to be struggling with drugs and alcohol to use these processes. You just have to want to make a change. You just have to want to create some sort of transformation. So that was the start of my journey into any sort of like spiritual journey or being in service to others through coaching and teaching. And then went on to study at the University of Santa Monica for spiritual psychology, just adding more tools into my toolkit to be able to help people understand their internal worlds. And that was always so crazy to me, that all the stuff that we learn in school and nobody teaches us about this internal world that always felt so real and so intense to me. It's crazy.
Our internal world is the key to everything.
Yeah.
Knowing that internal world.
Well, and it is everything, because we're perceiving through our own internal lens. It's like you're looking at me and you see an external figure, but I'm in here. And same with you, like you're in there. And that it's so crazy to me that we don't talk about this more, that we don't learn more about this growing up, about what our emotions mean, what our thoughts mean, how to navigate life, how to navigate relationships. And so that's so much of my mission and of the work that I do, is helping people understand these deeper subtleties of what's going on inside and how to navigate that inner world to create change, to create transformation.
Well, and just her title alone, Self-Approved, like I just feel like that is so powerful. It's such a message for everybody to just show up as you. Mm-hmm. Nobody else, just as you. And that's easy to do. Well, let's say easier said than done, because there's a lot of comparisons in this world. People compare themselves to other people. But when you realize that the universe made all of us so unique.
Yeah.
And we all have unique gifts, and that all we need to do is show up as ourselves, but also to get to that point, to do the work.
Yeah, but can we talk about what that means? Because I feel like people...
Let's talk about it.
I feel like we see that on Instagram and stuff all the time where it's like, be yourself, be your true self. And it's like, what does that really mean? What does that really mean? And it's so interesting that you're bringing this up too, because a lot of my clients have been talking about this exactly, where they're like, I want to know me. I want to find me. And I think that we're conditioned to look for that in an external ideal, right? Where it's like, I am Jamie, the relationship expert, and that's my true self. Or I am Kat with tattoos and brown hair right now. It changes all the time. But like, it's like we look for that self-expression and that true self in the ideal of what it's presented as. Right. When in truth, again, it's that internal journey. It's about actually knowing how to tap in to what's inside, to connect with our own soul, which, like you said, is so unique for every person. I use that line in the book. I say, we're all like snowflakes. Like, there's no two snowflakes that are alike. And again, but nobody teaches us that inner journey of knowing self. And then, like you said, expressing self out into the world and letting go of fear of judgment or fear of not fitting in. And I talk about this a lot in the book, actually, as well, as it's like there can be such a discrepancy if it's like who I feel like inside myself, I'm not seeing a representation of that externally in the world. And so that must mean that there's something wrong with what's going on inside of me, because I'm not having something out here that says like, this is who you are, this is okay. And a lot of people get stuck in that inner discrepancy without really knowing what's going on. And that's when a lot of people have the experience of like waking up in a midlife crisis, or waking up and going like, I don't know who I am, and I don't know like what's truly me. And that's what it is it was like an early abandonment of that self, of that inner self, of that inner alignment, that then manifests in these crazy ways that actually have been deemed so normal in society, but so many people suffer inside because of that.
And a lot of the work that both of us do is this inner child work. Mm-hmm. Both of us kind of help people to tap into that inner child, that child who just came into the world. They were who they were. It's before the world kind of like, not attacked them, but before they saw that they needed to hide, they needed to stay small, they couldn't express who they really were. Mm-hmm. And so this is what I know both of us do, and we really help clients to tap into their essential nature, right? And then that is one way to access your authentic self.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that ties in, so the work I do with people around sexuality is very much the same, in that, again, I found it crazy that like we grow up, we learn nothing about sex in school. We learn nothing about our own bodies.
We learn the birds and the bees, but basically, but not anything beyond that.
We learn a little bit about our reproductive and, you know, what it means to be a woman, but nothing beyond that. And again, I found myself confused and frustrated as I entered relationship and questioning, like, if this is such a key piece in relationship, why is nobody talking about it? Why did nobody teach me how to know myself or how to communicate or interact with someone sexually? And further than that, it's actually shamed, and there's so much that it's like it's bad to talk about, or we shouldn't talk about it. And it's like, how are we going to engage in something authentically and in a loving essence when it's bad to talk about anywhere else? And so that's a piece of what I do as well. The sexuality piece is really helping people to really truly know themselves sexually and to know their own body, and to then be able to embody that, feel comfortable embodying that, and to then bring that into relationship with another person.
Well, I love that there's a Kat Trimarco in this world and any other sex coach, because I feel like I'm just reflecting on my own life, and, you know, growing up, it's kind of like trial and error. It's like, oh, I dated this guy and this happened. And then we talk to our friends about it growing up. But it's not like your mom sends you to a sex coach when you're in your 20s or, you know. And so it's nice that I feel like in our society now, we have a you who's saying, even to young girls, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to go through 5 million trial and errors. And yes, you know, it's great to talk to your friends, but it's good to talk to a professional.
Totally. And the way that I look at that is the more we talk about it, the more, especially with young people, it's like the more it's talked about, the more solid then, I mean, no matter our age, but it's like then the more solid we become within ourselves, and it takes away this like icky
Sex.
Yeah, and that energy around, like there's a lot of fear energy around sex. It just, even culturally speaking, and it's like the more we talk about it, the more, which, oh my gosh, it's like, sorry, this is where I get really passionate. It's like, it's the most normal, natural thing in the world. It's how we got to be in physical bodies.
It's
like,
how we
got to
babies.
be. Yeah, like you've got a little one.
Yes.
It's how we get on the planet.
We had sex.
How can there be like so much hiddenness or like don't talk about it? And it's like, it's how we're all here. So
right.
Yeah, that's why I feel so passionate too about like coming on air and making these conversations more public, and even so I would invite anyone, like if you ever find yourself feeling like triggered by hearing these conversations, or it brings up like funky energy in your own body, it's like that's good, because that's what we need to come up to dismantle it, to normalize something that is so incredibly beautiful. Like, it's really the most beautiful experience that two people can share together.
It is, and I love that you truly do help people like destigmatize it. You help people reframe it. Yeah, I mean, and there is something called making love, which some people forget about, but really, you know, that is how you do create life, and life is love. So I'm sure that some of the work you do also, besides for like the empowerment and all that stuff that you do, but really also getting back to, wow, find someone that you truly love and make love. And spend time making love.
Yeah, and that, I'm trying to see how I feel about that. I'm an advocate for knowing self and engaging in what feels good to self. So if that's making love, I believe that every experience is enhanced by making love, and I feel that it's so much about like what feels in alignment for you right now, because we make things with sex like this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, like sex outside of marriage is bad. Like there's all these like constructs that we buy into or that we're taught around sexuality, and it prevents people from living their true pleasure and experiencing the true pleasure in their body. So that's a piece of it for sure.
Yeah, so I was just saying, like, with couples, when you're in a couple and you love your partner in that couple, to kind of emphasize getting back to that this is about love also. Yeah. However, I totally agree with you that, you know, these young people that are just not in a relationship, absolutely, as long as you're safe, wear a condom, you know, as long as you're safe, absolutely, get empowered, do what you need to do for pleasure. Why not?
Yeah. With the relationship piece, I always say that sex can, like when I'm teaching a workshop and stuff, I say sex can be the piece in relationship that builds love, connection, and intimacy, or it can be the thing that drives a wedge in between it. And since it's often, for many people, that's the one person that you're experiencing that with, why not have it be this beautiful, communicative act where it creates more love and intimacy? And the piece about, like, I think that it doesn't matter what age someone is. I actually had someone at one of my workshops recently, and I was talking a lot about relationships and how we build love and intimacy and sexual connection in relationship. And she came up to me at the end, and she was probably, I want to guess, like in her mid-40s, and she said, you know, I loved everything you talked about, but you didn't talk about what if I just want to have sex for pleasure, not inside the container of like a relationship. And I thought that was beautiful because she was very in tune with herself and very aligned with like, that's where I'm at right now. So that piece around, I think it like young people, of course, it's like if we can teach them this really young, even more important, but it's like teaching like what is aligned for you right now in this moment or in this stage in your life. And I just thought that was beautiful because it was like, there is no right, wrong, good or bad with this, but it is what's right is like being in aligned with like what feels true for me and what feels good for me in here, in my body, in my heart, in my soul right now, and how can I honor that?
I love it. And everybody at different points in their lives are going to go through different things that works for them. And ideally, nobody should judge that. You know, like if somebody is just saying, I really just want to be like kind of going around, not really settling down and just having relationships, or, you know, not long-term relationships and just having sex here and there, then yeah, we all need to honor that, ideally. More importantly, they need to honor themselves.
Absolutely.
And then maybe at some point they might want to settle down and have a relationship. But
totally,
we all have our own soul's curriculum, which we know, and just for all of us to honor ourselves, and then for people around us, ideally, to respect that.
And I love that because it ties back into what we were talking about in the book as well. Because I feel like finding our true selves is not a found it, like here I am, forevermore, like never gonna change.
It's like
it's a constant inner journey of like, what is my true self right now? And like you said, it's like that can change, whether it's around sex or anything in life. For me, it's like even I'm like, right now I'm like pescatarian, like I eat fish but not other meat, but there's times in my life where I'm not eating any meat, and there's times in my life I go out for dinner and I'm like, I really feel like I need chicken right now. And so it's even in these subtleties, right, of like what is true and aligned for me even in my food choices right now. But again, we look for that outer label, that outer construct to define self. And like, okay, so this is who I am. Like I'm vegetarian, or I'm vegan, or I'm hardcore meat and potatoes. And it's like, we need to shift back to true identity, which really is true inner spiritual. I don't even want to say spiritual, because if someone's not spiritual, it doesn't matter. It's like your inner relationship with yourself and operating in all areas of life from that place.
So I always think of Madonna when I think about like reinventing yourself, because she has gone through so many different inventing herself, and it just speaks to what you're talking about how we go through life, and we don't need a label. We're like, I'm going to be like this now, this is what I need now. I do feel like, and I think you would agree, that we do have a core authentic self, and that does not change. But what you're saying is that depending on what goes on in your life, how you experience life, your outlook, what your needs are changes as you go through life. But your core person, your core authentic self.
Let's talk about what that core is, because I think a lot of people feel like, that makes sense intellectually, but if I feel like, actually, and this is a process that I used when I got sober, it's like, if I feel like this is me, how do I know what is that core and what is not, right? So it's like, let's talk about, to share with everyone, what are some of the key qualities or the key inner knowings that are, okay, this is my core, like this is my true identity, and everything else is an expression, an avenue through which I express this core, this truth, this true self.
I feel like at a very simple level, it's about intuition. It's when you are intuitive and you're going around in this world and you're feeling, does this feel right to me? Does this feel like me? When you really take the time to really look inside.
Feels like home.
Feels like home. It feels comfortable, but not in like that comfort zone way. But it feels you're walking through life kind of flowing and with ease, not doubting, not second guessing, not should I do this, should I not? When you are in that flow and you're just going through your life, you're getting out there, you're doing what you love doing, you're in relationships, and there's not this constant, I don't know how I feel, and then you're talking to all your friends and you're going to the coaches, and which obviously coaches can definitely help you get clear. I'd say go to a coach more than a friend, not that a friend is not good, but go
to a coach. We're saying don't go to your friend. Go to a coach.
Come to us. But it's about looking inside and using your intuition. And the whole intuition thing, I understand that also can seem kind of far-fetched, but really also that is pretty simple once you start practicing the muscle.
Again, it's that we were never taught this.
Right.
Like we
no
weren't
one
taught
teaches you
this,
intuition.
like, hey, you have this inner guidance tool that is helping you in every moment make decisions, align with what is true for you, but we weren't taught. And that's what I teach in Self-Approved. Like I have a whole chapter on intuition. I have a whole chapter on like our internal emotional guidance system to help people like tangibly understand the difference in that guidance, in that feeling. And a big piece of that is recognizing when the voice, when the dialogue, when the emotion and the feeling is not that core knowing
not
home.
aligned.
And that sounds like the voice of doubt, the voice of hate. It feels like not loving self. It feels like self-critical, self-judgment. It feels like judgment towards others. It's like that is not true self. Because see, some people even misconstrue this and step into like, I'm my authentic self, and that means that da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, not so much.
It should feel peaceful.
It should feel peaceful and loving and light and
I'm
fun.
my authentic self.
Yeah. Accept me. Yeah, no. But I want to talk about that piece around identity, because this is a tool that I used when I got sober. And I was actually talking with my coach this morning, actually just a few hours before I came here, and we were talking about this piece around, because we are constantly, and like you said with Madonna, reinventing the next version of ourselves. And so when we're identified with these things as who we are, we can't move past them, but we also have to tap into the identity of what we're becoming. So for me, when I literally 10 years of drug and alcohol abuse and one day went, I'm done, what I did was, and I talk about this in the book as well, is I created a new identity. And I stepped into that. And that takes commitment. It takes a dedication to the inner processes, because people in your life are still going to reflect to you the old identity, the old version of who you used to be. So you have to have like an internal commitment to the new self, to the new identity as you step into it.
Internal strength.
An internal strength.
Courage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yet
solidness.
I feel like we get to be in that process all the time. And once we're identified with the true self as that loving being, it's like, okay, now anything else that I do, that I be in this lifetime is like a self, it's an identity that I choose to wear. You know, it's like a way through which I choose to express myself. But a lot of people are identified with the expression as who they are. So if that thing changes, there's crisis, there's internal crisis, whether it's like, oh, I'm a wife and I'm like one of this whole, and that relationship changes, there's an identity crisis, or like, who am I now? And it's the same thing, like highly successful people can do that with their work as well, right? Like it's like, I am, Kat Trimarco, the author and coach, but that's an expression through which my soul is expressing. I'm not identified as like, if this label goes away, I go away. And it sounds simple, but so many people think who they are these outside constructs, and that's limiting. When we open up to this authentic self, we free ourselves to get to step into different identities and therefore really truly become like the creators and the manifestors of our own reality, and over and over and over and over again. And life becomes a playground. It becomes fun.
So much fun.
It becomes like, this is amazing.
So what I wanted to reflect back to you and talk more about is I love that you were talking about, when you show up as your evolved self, and people in your life still look at you as the person from the past. And then really what is the key is to, if you show up in your loving, and any type of judgment will not, it's like you have like this shield where like any judgment would bounce right off. You don't internalize it. And the more that you don't let any judgments or opinions or anything come in, the more that you completely just you own it. And the less that anybody in your life would want to judge, because they know that they can't like permeate.
Yes. And they
can't permeate your energy.
Totally. Which is an inner process, and that's where it becomes essential to tap into the new identity and strengthen the new identity. Strengthen the new, and that's where working with a coach or someone who can help you see you as that new identity and help you strengthen that new version of you. Because it sounds easy that it's like, oh, it doesn't matter what that person thinks. But I'll tell you, when you're trying to walk away from like a life of 10 years of drugs and alcohol, and your whole community is like, but we drink, that's how we socialize, and that's all you know. And we all have a version of that. You know what I mean? It's like, that was my version, but we all in any moment in time have that version of like, people see me as this. So therefore, if I try and change, they're going to try and hook me back in, because it makes other people feel extremely uncomfortable when you start progressing into something. So it's like, I like my kind of, okay, this is your homework. Anyone who's listening is like, what is your version of that? What is your version of, I'm ready to change this thing, or I feel like I've outgrown a certain construct in my life, but it's my normal. It's like this box I'm stuck in, and it's what everyone else sees me as. Like, what is your version of that? Like, what is your construct of that? And really be honest with yourself. This is a big piece I give my clients when I'm working with someone one-on-one, is you got to get honest with yourself about what's going on inside. Where am I truly not happy? Where are things not working? Where am I not in alignment with that inner truth? And get that help to build the new identity and step into it. Because that's freedom. That is freedom in this lifetime. There is no material, there is no amount of money, there is no relationship, there is no any amount of sex. I meant to say success. I was going to say success, and I said sex. Sex or success that can create that like the freedom is that inner alignment, and then expressing that, allowing yourself to express that.
And do we have a caller? No? I think we might have a caller. Hi, do we have a caller? Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, who's this?
This is James Chu. Who's this?
Hi, welcome to Love Talk Live. You're talking to
James.
Jamie, and I have my guest Kat Trimarco on today. Do you have...
All right.
Did you call in because you have a question, sir?
I do have a question, actually.
Okay, great.
This question
Wait, first of all, before we go on,
for
James, where are you from?
Yes. I am from Los Angeles, California.
Hi, James.
Fantastic. James, my husband calls me James, so we kind of have the same name.
Oh, so you want me to...
You can address me
as
James.
Change my name?
No, you can address me as James if you'd like to. Okay. Anyhow,
okay.
What's your question?
Okay, so my question is for Kat.
Yes.
And I wanted to know, do you have like any rules like in the sex area with different people where you're like, okay, this is a rule where you don't want to cross this line because it'll like, it may lead to consequences you don't want to deal with? Like, let's say, somebody is getting out of a marriage, or, there's other life circumstances involved. Now, is that something that would come into your decision-making process? like,
I
as you
ask,
say, you check in with your authentic self, and then you go into your intuition, and it's like, okay, well, I feel an attraction towards this person, but it's like, it could be messy or something like that.
I feel like it's a broad question. Are you asking for myself personally, or if I was helping guide someone through it, or is there like a real specific situation unfolding in your life that you want to like outline, and I can really then like laser in on it and do a bit of coaching around it? Vulnerable, putting you on the spot. Because I can answer it in a broad sense, but
last name.
Like, because I go around and I'm like, okay, well, I have chemistry with a lot of different people, and then it's like, well, I could potentially say like, oh yeah, like that person I would like to engage with, like I'm attracted to that person, but then I'm like, oh well, wait a second, like that person, is like in a relationship, or that person, is not available. But so then I kind of have this thing inside where I take like 2 weeks, and then it's like, and in 2 weeks, if I still feel that way, then maybe I want to take some more action. But if in 2 weeks I don't feel that way, then I try and let it go.
And so are you in a committed primary relationship, or are you single?
No, actually, no, I'm single. Okay. So I was in a relationship for 3 years, and I've been single for like 3 months, and I'm seeing, like a lot of nice potential mates and girls that I would consider, dating or having a long-term relationship with. And these are some of the thoughts that are in my head. It's like, well, okay, that girl, I like that girl, but she's got like this going on in her life. Or I like that girl. And then I'm like, well, if I was to engage in there, then I would have to deal with all this, this other stuff that comes along. So it's kind of like, I guess I'm looking at it, maybe I'm overthinking it. I don't know, so I'm like trying to look at the whole picture, I guess, before I engage sexually, because then it's like, once I do that, I feel like I'm all of a sudden in this person's life.
Right. So are you asking if
and then it's like you're opening up a whole karmic field with this person, and then it's like, oh, I've just entered this person's life, and now it's like, so I'm kind of like doing my homework first. I don't know if that makes sense.
Maybe can you articulate your question?
I think it makes sense, and there's a few pieces I want to touch on, and tell me if this lands for you, or if this resonates with what you're asking specifically. Communication is a huge piece in it, and this is a big part of what I teach men and women and couples, because we create so many assumptions based on, like, it's what I'm hearing from you is that there's a lot of assumptions about what you entering her life or entering like literally her body would mean to her, or how that would affect her life in other areas. And so the first piece would be like, there needs to be actual communication around that to identify, like, is this actually true for her, or am I making up these stories or these projections of what might unfold in the future based on that? And that's where I feel like sexual and relationship communication is so important, because it's like, if two people are both looking for, like, let's just have a one-night stand, or let's just be physical, there doesn't need to be all this karmic, like, repercussion or opening up a karmic door in that, when both people are aligned energetically and there's a verbal communication around that. That's the way I see it. But if it's like,
I like that.
If it's like competing intentions, like two people have different intentions and there's no communication around it, that's when it becomes messy. That's when it becomes, the energy becomes weird, and that's where there needs to be communication.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point that you said that, and the communication part. I think if you lay it all out, like, or if you cover like what's important, then that really cleans it up nicely.
Does that answer what you were asking, or is there another piece, or does that cause something to go deeper?
No,
I have another question.
That actually does answer it. That does answer it. Yeah. I think clear communication for me is kind of like maybe the part I was overlooking. It's like, if there's a part that's not 100% clear, well, engage it. Like, don't, like, not look at it and hope it doesn't bite you in the butt later.
Totally. Two pieces in that I want to give you and anyone listening, because everybody has their own version of this in some way, is before communicating, getting clear within yourself on two pieces, two things. And one is, if I take judgment out, right? Like we were talking about judgment. If I take out the rightness or the wrongness of my desire, and around sex, man, we have so many rights and wrongs around desire. So it's really doing the emotional work to clean up. Like if there are no rights and wrongs here, and I really truly just tap into what is my desire with this person, and then getting clear on what is my intention. So it might be like, my intention is to build a committed relationship and that eventually moves into marriage, and communicating that. Or it might be, I'm not looking for a relationship. I really want to have some amazing sex and some amazing physical chemistry. So it's like, there is no right, wrong, good or bad with any spectrum within that, but it's going in with the clarity of like, what is it that I truly want? What is my intention here? And dismantling all the garbage of the right, wrong, good or bad around it, and then going into communication with that clarity. And that's true honesty. That's true authenticity to me. And I've navigated these conversations with partners multiple times, and in truth, it's like, it's easier said than done. It's scary. It can bring up some stuff. It feels really vulnerable, but at the end of it, it's like, it's just like, I honored myself. I honored what's true for me. And how can that person ever be upset or angry, or when you're truly in alignment within yourself and communicating from that place?
I have a question for you about your life. So you start dating this guy, you're on one date. Do you personally bring up sex and what you need and what your intentions are right away? Does it depend on the guy? Does it depend on the situation?
Such a good question. Yeah. So for myself personally, it's a bit different for me because I do work around sex coaching. It's usually that has come up a little bit at some point of like, well, what does that mean? What is that? Like, what do you do? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, because your job comes up.
Exactly. And so I explain that. That being said, like, I've been on dating sites and I don't list sex coach. Like I say, spiritual psychology coach, author, speaker, because I don't want to attract the wrong energy or I want that to be a conversation I have with someone in person.
I like that.
But aside from that, I don't have it on like a first or a second date. No, but I would say like third, fourth date, if I'm feeling someone and I'm seeing it move in that direction, yes. And that's what I always talk to people about and tell, like, whether it's a workshop I'm teaching or one-on-one coaching, it's ludicrous to me that we don't have these conversations. Like, well, let's wait till we're like, till it might happen and then let's talk about it. Like, how less intimidating is it? How much more comfortable is it to have an open conversation at dinner or coffee when there's a safety and you're not going into the bedroom together, and build that and get clarity on that. So that being said, like, there's obviously way more than we would have time to go into today, but there's like, to me, there's stages of communication of like the initial conversation in dating, and then there's like the in the bedroom conversation around the specifics of desires. And that's a big piece of what I teach as well, is like, because that gets really vulnerable around, well, can you touch me like this? Can you do this? Can you do that? That can bring up a lot of fear in people, a lot of vulnerability. So to me, there's like the stages of communication.
And I really just honor you, and I love what you do, because once again, nobody is taught this. Nobody is taught to like speak up in the bedroom. Some people naturally, they just do. But I'd say most people really don't. And then you have to exercise that muscle throughout life as you get older. And most people don't really feel comfortable till they are older. So I love that you're doing this for all ages, and especially like the young people who, are kind of just starting out in their spiritual journey.
Totally.
So I like that.
Does that, James, did I answer your question?
James.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say that was so helpful, and I really acknowledge you, Kat, because it feels like you're really masterful in this area.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate your feedback. And I would just ask one more question, and that would be about, like, once you're in the marriage stage, and it's like maybe you've been married for a few years or however many years, and let's say it's like the initial honeymoon stage has perhaps worn off.
Yeah.
what do you do at that time if like sex, maybe like it goes through phases where maybe it becomes less interesting, or it's like not, I don't know, you're attracted to other people? I was just curious because I know this could probably have many answers actually.
Totally.
But
my brain is like, there's this and there's this and there's this and this. Amazing question, and one of my favorite subjects and topics, because I've never been married, but I've found myself in, I could share there's a whole journey that led me into doing the sex coaching. But I was in like a virtually sexless relationship with a person that I loved so much. And that's confusing of like, what's going on? Why aren't I turned on? Do they not want to have sex with me? Do I not want to have sex with them? Like, what's going on? And again, nowhere to go and talk about it, right? Because nobody's talking about this stuff. So it's like there's suffering alone. So there's a few pieces that I pull into that, like when I'm working with clients on that. And so I view sex holistically. So I look at it from physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And with the physical aspect, I'm actually a trained and certified erotic blueprint coach. The erotic blueprints is a body of work of a sexological body worker named Jaya. So that's one piece I use in my work, and I help people to actually map out how their body is physically and somatically wired to receive sexual pleasure, because we're not all wired the same. And so often if there's a disconnect in chemistry, it can actually be that your partner is not being fed in the way that their body receives, or vice versa. Even if you're having sex, this is the crazy thing, even if you're having intercourse, there's deeper pieces to these blueprints that it's like you can be going through the motions of intercourse but not truly being sexually satiated. So in that situation, I help couples map out how each of them is wired physically and learn how to feed each other, like feed each other sexually. And then I look at the emotional aspects and the mental aspects, because sometimes there's a story present, like a framework internally of if someone's stuck in a pattern of criticism, right, of continually judging and criticizing their partner. It's like we can't be in a framework of like, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, I don't like how you do this, I don't like the way you look like this, and da-da-da-da, and then go have passionate sex with that person and enjoy it. So that's a mental piece. That's we need to rewire your brain and how you perceive your partner, which is usually someone who's also self-critical. So that's like, I pull in all these pieces, and that's why I'm so passionate about this work I do, and where I do feel I'm very masterful, because there's sex therapists and sex coaches that work on the physical level where it's like, okay, well, try this technique, or there's this toy, and do this. And it's like, if there's mental and emotional and spiritual kind of blockages happening, or things that need cleaning up, that's not going to help. Yeah. And we can't just look at the inner world. We have to look at it all. So that's where I go in, like, examining all of these pillars, with whether I'm working with one person or a couple, and optimizing in all of those pillars.
Kat is very well versed at what she does. She's amazing. I think she might have just gotten a new client.
Yeah, James, if you want to know more,
James might be calling you.
Yeah, I'll. Well, I guess if if you're joining live on Facebook, but I'll just give my business email as well.
Yes, we do have to wrap up. So
for anyone, are we done already? Oh my gosh, could talk forever.
How can people find Kat?
Yeah, so you can find me email contact@kattrimarco.com. So that's CONTACT at KATTRIMARCO.com if you want any information on coaching, on how to work with me. I have an in-person, I do in-person events and workshops. So if you want, I have one coming up in August. If you want to learn about that or come to that, single, partner, partnered, whatever, email me. I can send you more info. And find me on social media. On Facebook, it's Kat Trimarco, KAT space TRIMARCO. And on Instagram is KAT_TRIMARCO. And my book, Self-Approved, is on Amazon.
Yes, and you have a deal or something right now?
I actually don't. It's not going to be on until August. I pushed it back. I wanted to put it on for my 6-year sobriety anniversary. Awesome. So I will be running a special on it then, but in the meantime,
so follow
it's on
her
Amazon.
And she'll be announcing. And as always, if you have any questions, you can find me at therelationshipexpert.com. And you can email me at Jaime, Jaime, at therelationshipexpert.com. Thank you so much, Kat, for coming today on the show. You were amazing. I feel like our viewers were inspired. And I'm assuming you're going to be getting a lot of phone calls.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you, James, for calling in and your vulnerability to ask your questions. And I feel like you opened up for a lot of people. Like, you got to be the voice for maybe what a lot of people who are watching or are going to watch the replay are feeling, experiencing. And so I want to just acknowledge and honor you for calling in and asking those questions and opening that door.
And especially men. So that's great, you know, because a lot of women watch the show and men aren't as comfortable as, you know, to being vulnerable. So thank you, James, also.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with me and openly communicating with me. I appreciate you both, Kat and Jaime. And, many blessings.
Blessings to you, too. Everybody, have a great night.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you next time.
You're listening to Love Talk Live with the relationship expert, Jaime Bronstein, only on LA Talk Radio.